What's going on, you guys? Welcome on back to the channel. Now, I just finished Clair Obscure Expedition 33, and like all of you, I can wholeheartedly admit this game is a masterpiece. I have not played a game quite like this in so long. There's so many things I could say about this game, right? There's so many different ways I could talk about this game for this video. I could talk about how beautiful it is. I could talk about how great the music is. I could talk about how great the characters are. But there's one element of this game that I feel like hasn't been getting enough discussion surrounding it. And that is the big choice that you have to make at the end of this game. So, spoilers in case any of you guys haven't played this game before. You don't want to get spoiled. You want to go play Game of the Year before it gets announced. I understand, but spoilers right now. So at the end of this game, you have to make the choice between do you pick Maelle or do you pick Verso, and essentially this decides the fate of the canvas. Now, this choice was one that was very controversial, let's say the least. Not because it was bad, but because both choices feel like they're the right choice. And that's what's so good about how the developers handled this ending. Either choice feels like it's the correct option because you grow attached with Maelle and you grow attached with Verso throughout the entire game. They do a very good job of making you grow attached to these two characters specifically. But while I did love Maelle as a character, I did end up choosing Verso's ending. And let me tell you why. As the story went on, we begin to see Maelle start to crack as a character, right? She starts the story off just wanting to leave Lumiere so that way she can just see the world, right? But as things start to happen to her, she loses Gustave. Everything that starts to happen in Act Two, we slowly see her start to crack from it, right? And as the revelations from Act Two continue to happen, at the end of Act Two and starting Act Three, we see Maelle make a choice that officially made me shift away from her and fully side with Verso. And that was when Verso was about to die at the beginning of Act 3. You see him finally accept that he's going to be able to finally rest, right? He's finally doesn't have to be a puppet in this canvas anymore. He can just rest. Verso as a whole is finally going to be able to put to rest, and the Desandre family are going to be able to grieve. But no, Maelle makes the choice to force Verso to stay back in this world against his will because Maelle is incapable or not willing to grieve the loss of her brother and wants to stay in the canvas because she doesn't want to face the outside world. That decision that she made officially pivoted her into kind of a monster because now she knows what she's doing. She has officially woken up from who she was before. She's now the true Maelle. And what I mean by the true Maelle is she remembers everything. So the Maelle that we had in the first two acts, that's a completely different Maelle. Like they pretty much showed that at the beginning of Act 3. That's kind of a different Maelle. This is a Maelle that doesn't have any of her memories or anything like that. So you grow attached to the Maelle that doesn't have her memories. But with the Maelle we get in Act 3, this is a Maelle that has all of her memories. And because of this, she's doing everything she can to preserve the life that she has in the canvas, but also not allowing Verso to essentially die. She refuses to let him go. Because even though she can bring people back, she doesn't want to lose Verso because Verso dying in the real world was so traumatizing to her and her family that they have been unable to grieve. But in order for this family to move on from the canvas, they firstly have to let the canvas go, and they have to properly grieve Verso. So that's like the main reason why I side with Verso, in my opinion. Verso just feels like he becomes the protagonist of the story very quietly. Like, while you might think Maelle is the protagonist, if you really think about it, it's kind of Verso. Because Verso, even though you don't know it, he's present throughout a lot of big moments in Act 1. He gets Maelle off the beach. He is essentially the one that leads Gustave and Lune to the manor. He does a lot in the story that we don't see and you don't really notice until you go back in. You go back in and see and do another playthrough, or you look at things in a completely different light. But Verso has been there since the beginning. He's been trying to lead things in the correct order so that way he can like get his mom out of the canvas, for example, making the paintress die, aka their mom, so that way things can finally start to move in the right direction for Verso. Even though Verso's actions are portrayed as traitorous, I don't view them as traitorous because if you frame it in the context that this is Verso's story, it makes sense why he's doing this. He wants to be able to rest. This is a character that has been forced to live for like throughout all of this. He doesn't want to do this anymore. He wants to be able to rest and he wants his family to finally be able to grieve him and move forward with their lives. They haven't been moving forward. They're all stagnant. They're all stuck. Renoir's in the canvas because his wife won't leave it. Clea is essentially starting her own war because she doesn't want to move past it. There's so many characters that refuse to move on. So that's why when I made the choice that I made at the end of this game, I made it in the context of which characters will be able to move on from this story. Which characters do I feel like have the most potential of moving on with their lives? And I chose the Sant family and I chose Verso's ending because even though I grew attached to everybody in the canvas and the party members just like Maelle did, that's a trap. That's a clever trap that the developers make for you. And I like that a lot because like I said, you grow attached to everybody in this game. You grow attached to the world. You grow attached to the gestrels. You grow attached to the environments. You grow attached to every single area in this game. But it's a mirage. If you get too attached, you become like Maelle. You become somebody that doesn't want to leave the canvas. That's why I had to pick Verso. Because even though I love this world and I didn't want to leave it, I played like 90 hours of this game. I didn't want to leave the canvas, similar to Maelle. It had to be done because this family deserves to rest. And when you find out that the little boy that we've seen throughout so many areas in the game, pretty much like every side area, every major area, we see the little boy that talks to you and then he goes silent. We see him again in the canvas when we have to decide the fate of it. And we find out that that's little Verso. And when Verso asks, "Do you want to stop painting?" and he nods his head, that's when I made the decision that I had to pick Verso's ending because Verso wants to rest. And Maelle is refusing to do that. Yes, Maelle is a character that also has a very compelling argument, but like I said, I view Maelle kind of as I view her story as the burgeoning of a monster being born. And what I mean by that is you slowly see it throughout the story. And if you choose her ending in Act 3, you see it come to fruition. You see everybody from the game revived, but then you see Verso at the piano. He doesn't want to play the piano, and then he looks at Maelle, and Maelle is low-key kind of like forcing him to play the piano. She's forcing him to stay alive so that way this version of Verso and her family that she made in the canvas is forced to stay alive. And that's why I picked Verso. Because even though Maelle has a compelling argument, Verso is the character that I viewed as the one that needed to be able to rest and be able to move on from this. And that's why I picked Verso's ending. It's a compelling, it's both sides are compelling. And that's what I loved about this game, because both sides feel like they're in the right. These developers need to be applauded, because I haven't been this torn from a decision in a long time. Like, even when I was making the decision, I low-key felt like, could I change it? That's how good this game is. That's how well it's made. And I cannot wait to see what these developers do in the future. But that's going to do it for me. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. How did you guys feel about the ending of this game? Which character's ending did you pick? Did you pick Verso or did you pick Maelle? And which one do you view as the proper ending? Let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, subscribe. And as always, I'm going to talk to you guys next time. Bye.